Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is Wednesday, August 29th, and it is a lovely day here in Chicago. It seems like the heat wave that we were having earlier this week broke, which meant that I'm actually comfortable walking to and from work in long pants and a short sleeve shirt. I mean, I'm getting warm, but not uncomfortable. So, your daily weather report has been satisfied. I hope that your month is going well. I'm approaching the end of mine, which signifies a fair amount of movement in the professional life. I am teaching a big new class that I haven't taught before. So I met with my 3 TAs today, which is a new experience, having teaching assistants that I need to mold. It will be interesting to see how that goes and to see where the class goes. Today I thought I would continue from last episode. I was answering some questions from the Q&A thread. I think I'm going to try to do this as the last few episodes that I record each month, although chances are this gets played at the beginning of the next month because that's the way these things roll. In fact, now that I think about it, I wonder if I missed publishing an episode today. I may have to quickly go edit that when I get home. I know this time travel thing is weird, isn't it? Where I'm talking to you about an episode that you listened to already a couple days ago. Anyway. So I have 2 more questions from the guild that Christopher Hickman asked as part of his question and answer post. And I think I will use these to round out the Q&A episodes today. His first question was, how do you organize your shelves? I apologize, I didn't print it out here, so I'm paraphrasing. He asked if I do organize alphabetically, by designer, by publisher. What's my mode? I have tried a variety of different things. I've tried alphabetical. Alphabetical is nice because it makes it easy to find the games. I've tried by publisher, and I think that that's probably higher in terms of my organization now by publisher. But to be honest, the overriding factor in the organization of my games is box size. So I have a number of IKEA Kallax shelves, the gold standard in cheap board game shelving. I say cheap, it's not cheap compared to compared to cinder blocks and 2x4s or cinder blocks and 12x2s, but it's certainly cheap compared to like high-end bookshelves that are heirloom quality or something. But basically I have 4 2x8 shelves. So it's a little bit different than the people who have the big 4x4s. Honestly, I was planning to get 2 4x4s, but when I went to buy the shelves, they didn't have, I think they had 1 4x4 and it was white. And we didn't want white shelves, we wanted black or dark brown. So they had 4 of the 2x4s, so that's what we got. And I store those vertically, so each one is standing 2 wide and 4 high. So I organize the games within those, and generally what I do is I stack. I prefer keeping games horizontal. I know that's not ideal, but some games will get crushed that way. But most games I've packed in a way, or any game that everything isn't totally bagged. I really don't like when games get tipped on their side. And generally 3 games on top of each other don't result in damage to the bottom box. So I generally stack my games, and in many shelves, and generally what I do is I'll find 4 games, 3 or 4 usually, that have boxes that are roughly the same width. Usually I can find games where the boxes are the same size, usually height, width, and depth, but often at least width I can find boxes that are the same size. So I'll get a stack that's kind of even, and then depending on the size of the box, I may have some space next to that stack where I will put one game stored vertically in bookshelf style. And the size of that game depends on the size of the other games. Now, there are some games that are too big to do that even. your standard Ticket to Ride size box is pretty much too big to put a game next to in the Kallax shelves. But there are quite a few games that are basically 8.5 by 11, sort of the size of a standard Pandemic game, and those I'm able to fit another game standing up next to. So my overriding goal is to fit as many games into my shelves as I can, and I do that through assiduous focus on game size, box size. That said, the next filter by which I organize my games is designer. And I only have a couple designers where I do this, but generally if I have a designer where I have several games by them, I try to put those games next to each other. Sometimes that's easy because often designers will work with the same publisher, so the first filter, the box size, is true. So for instance, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm counting in my head, 4, 5, 6 Martin Wallace games published by Tree Frog. And since he ran Tree Frog, all of the box sizes are the same. So A Study in Emerald, A Few Acres of Snow, Onward to Venus, Moonga Invaders, although Moonga Invaders is very thick, but it's still the same width and height, or width and depth. Mythotopia and A Handful of Stars are all basically the same size, give or take. And so I have all those games near each other on my shelves or on top of each other because they have the same footprint. Similarly, Vladimir Suchi's games from Czech Games Edition are all pretty much the same size box as well. So a lot of those games are next to each other. This isn't uniform or ubiquitous, but it's enough of an issue that I'm able to do that some. I also try to put games next to their expansions when I have expansions that need to be stored in separate boxes. So I will post a picture. I'll take a selfie, a shelfie. I haven't taken one of those in several months. I'll take a picture of the current state of my board game shelf and post it in Boardgame Geek and link to it on the forum and on the show notes page over on rattleboxgames.com. So if you want to see how my shelf looks and decide for yourself. I also have 4 small drawers that I've purchased that go in the shelf where I put small box games, and I arrange them so they're nice to look at when you open the drawer. You can kind of see them. On top of the shelves, I keep a number of things. One, I'll keep sort of new purchases till I found a spot to put them down in the main area. I have a couple games that take up so much room they can't be in the main area. So Netrunner is up on the top, as well as Arkham Horror. And I have a couple larger games like my collection of old style games that come in the long, thin boxes. I have a copy of Columbo, the board game, and Murder, She Wrote, the board game. My copy of Secret Hitler and other boxes that are weird sized are all up on top of my shelves. As well as games that are sort of on their way into the trade pile or sell pile or donate pile. Those generally get put on top of the shelves as well. So I'm curious to hear from listeners, how are you organizing your shelves? I'm not sure what I'm going to do in a year when Hellboy shows up and I've got 20 boxes of stuff or whatever is going to come with that game. It looks like it's going to be enormous. So Chris asks one more question. He said, expansions, yay or nay? That's an interesting question. As somebody who has fully acknowledged that as often as not, I'll try a new thing over playing a thing again. I actually do really like expansions because it allows to make a new thing out of an old thing. So when they offer an expansion for a game, I often will want to buy it. In fact, sometimes I want to buy the expansion before I even played the game, because I have so many games that I buy that I want to play. Like for instance, Orléans, I played it at Origins in 2017. I really enjoyed it. Haven't played it since. But I keep seeing those lovely expansions for Orléans, and I'm really worried they're going to go out of print. And then I'll play it, and I'll love it, and I'll be like, oh man, now I got to get those expansions. And then they'll be out of print. So that's actually been one of the things that makes me want to get the expansions sooner rather than later. But generally, yes, I do like expansions because if I like a game, I like having more of the game to play. Plus, I am ruthless about box inserts and consolidation. So if I can, I will put the contents of the game into the box of the base game. And I love when a base game box is big enough to accommodate that. On the other hand, I like when base game boxes are really compact as well, in which case then the question of the expansion is how do you package it? One thing I'm pretty excited for is the recent Kickstarter for Mind Clash games for Trickerion. The new Trickerion expansion also included a new box that will hold all the stuff from the original Trickerion, plus the Dalgard's expansion, plus the new Academy, or the new expansion that they just came out with in a sort of lovely super box. So I'm excited for that. I think it's velveteen even, which will be pretty silly, but kind of fun. So yeah, expansions are generally yay. So that is all of the questions from the Q&A segment. If you have questions that you'd like me to answer in a more elaborate form than, or in a segment like this, go ahead and post those in the forum. Like I said, if I'm getting a fair number of these, I'm going to try to do them as part of the monthly cycle. I think I should make a list somewhere of the kinds of things I've said are going to be part of a monthly update for the series. I've got the so I've got these Q&A segments. I've got my top of the stack episode, which also includes my 10 for 10 update and my out of the dust list. I have my what have I been playing episode, which sometimes will have an update in the middle of the month as well. So that's 4 different sort of standardized segments, which would be good to maybe do one a week for each of those. And then I have 2 episodes each week where I can do other things. It's pretty interesting. I feel like there was one more. I'm gonna have to look back and see what was the other one that I said I would do with regularity. So while I have a minute here, I thought I would share my experiences at Toggle Gaming last night. We had an interesting playtest of a game that we're working on, and it leads me to a question: how do you sell a game that isn't like any other games? I don't mean to say, oh, we've come up with a totally unique game, but one of the things we had, a friend of ours who's another developer who played our game said, I don't know how to describe this game. It's different than many other games. And even if I were to say post a discussion or description of the game and have people say, oh, that's like this other thing, if I have to get to a point where people are naming a game I've never heard of to say how it's like our game, I can't use that other game to sell it. Because, not to be braggy, but if I haven't heard of it, it's fairly obscure as a game. There are plenty of games that are not obscure that I haven't heard of, I'm sure. But I'm pretty familiar with the gaming landscape at this point. And if you're going to name a game in a way that you expect to be able to sell it, and I haven't heard of it, I think there's a disconnect there. Not to say that it couldn't work. But so it gets us back to the question of how do you sell a game that is just completely unique? So it leads me to the question, what games have you encountered that were so different you couldn't figure out how to describe them to other people? Especially if the premise is a little off. So that's my challenge for you today. I would also like to, of course, know any questions you have or any responses you have. I'll throw these questions that Chris asked back to the group. How do you organize your shelves? And expansions, yay or nay? What do you think of these ideas? Because as much as this is a solo podcast, and I recognize that, I also wouldn't mind it being a conversational one. This could be the starting point for a conversation in the guild, and I would love it if it were. Thanks for joining me today. You can reach out to me, Brendan, at Rattlebox Games, or tweet at me at Rattlebox Games. You can find show notes over at rattleboxgames.com, and you can join our guild 3269 over on Boardgame Geek to participate in the conversation. Thanks for listening. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.